Betrayal doesn't start with a bang. It starts with a whisper, a feeling that something is off. The way someone looks at their phone, the way their touch feels different, the way their words start to mean less. That's how it started with Sophia. We had been married for 6 years. 6 good years, or at least I thought so. We had routines, inside jokes, little things that made our relationship feel solid. But lately, she was different. It started small. She'd turn her phone away when I walked into the room. She'd laugh at messages and refuse to tell me what was so funny. Late nights became more frequent, always with excuses. Work dinners, gym sessions, helping a friend, and then came the final straw. It was a Friday night. She was in the shower. Her phone, normally glued to her hand, was left on the nightstand. It buzzed once. I wasn't planning to look, but then, a preview of the message flashed on the screen. Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you. My body went cold. I stared at the screen, my breathing slow, controlled. A burner number. No name attached. She had covered her tracks. Or at least, she thought she had. The sound of the shower stopped. Footsteps on the tile. I placed the phone back exactly where she left it and walked into the kitchen, forcing my hands to stay steady. She came out minutes later, hair damp, towel wrapped around her body, smiling like she wasn't hiding a fucking secret. "Hey, babe," she said, walking over to kiss me on the cheek. I let her. I let her pretend. Because at that moment, I had already made my decision. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to cry, yell, demand the truth. That would give her power. That would let her rewrite the story, make me the bad guy for not trusting her. No, I was going to do something much worse. I was going to make her question reality itself. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed beside her, listening to her breathe, feeling the warmth of her body next to mine, knowing that everything I once loved about her was a lie. She shifted in her sleep, mumbling something, and I wondered if she was dreaming about him. The thought made my chest tighten, but I pushed it down. I wasn't going to let anger cloud my judgment. I had a plan to execute. The next morning, I acted normal. I kissed her goodbye, told her to have a good day, and watched as she left, her smile bright, her eyes full of secrets. The second she was gone, I grabbed my phone and made the first call. "I need your help," I said, my voice steady. "Are you in?" There was a pause on the other end before a familiar voice answered. "Always." That was my best friend, Ryan. He had been through hell with a cheating ex of his own, and when I told him what was happening, he didn't even hesitate. "Tell me what you need," he said. So I did. Step 1. Surveillance. If I was going to destroy her, I needed proof. Ryan had connections, and by the end of the day, I had access to a tracking app that mirrored her phone activity in real time. Every message she sent, every call she made, every location she visited. I could see it all. That night, while she lay next to me, texting her secret lover under the covers, I watched the messages appear on my screen. She had no idea I was reading every word. Step 2. The financial chokehold. Sophia never handled our finances. She trusted me to take care of the bills, the savings, everything. That gave me power. I rerouted her direct deposits into a separate account she didn't have access to. I made small withdrawals from her savings, nothing too noticeable, yet. In a few weeks, she would check her balance and realize she was bleeding money. She would think it was her mistake. Step 3. Isolate her. She had friends, people she vented to, people who might comfort her when things started falling apart. I couldn't allow that. So I planted the seeds of doubt. I used her phone to send passive-aggressive texts to her closest friends, making it seem like she was lashing out. "I'm so tired of always being the one who cares more," I wrote to one. "Maybe we should take a break from talking for a while." One by one, they started pulling away. She noticed. "Everyone's acting weird," she told me one night, frustration in her voice. "Even Jessica barely talks to me anymore." I shrugged. "Maybe you did something to upset them." She frowned, chewing on her lip, doubt creeping into her eyes. "Good. Let it grow." Step 4. Make her question reality. I started small, moving things around the house, taking her keys and putting them in the freezer, unplugging her phone charger just enough so it wouldn't charge overnight. She thought she was being forgetful. She started second-guessing herself, getting frustrated, snapping at me when she couldn't find something. "I swear I left my earrings on the dresser," she muttered, searching through her jewelry box for the third time. "Are you sure?" I asked, watching her from the doorway. She hesitated, her brow furrowing. "Yeah, I think so." I let silence stretch between us, then sighed. "Maybe you should slow down a bit. You've been stressed." She exhaled sharply, nodding, rubbing her temples. She was already starting to doubt herself. Perfect. The final piece was ensuring she had no way out. I reached out to an old college friend, Liam, who worked in IT security. "I need access to her emails," I told him. He didn't ask why. "Give me an hour," he said. By that night, I had everything. Bank statements, emails, private messages. The best part? I now had access to her burner phone, the one she used to text him. I stared at the messages, my stomach tight, my hands gripping the edge of the desk. They had a whole other life behind my back. But not for long, because soon, Sophia wouldn't know who to trust. Soon, she would be alone, confused, scared. And when she finally realized what was happening, it would already be too late. She was unraveling, and it was beautiful to watch. Every day, I saw her confidence crack just a little more, watched as she second-guessed everything around her, as the doubt in her own mind grew like a virus she couldn't fight. It started with small frustrations, misplaced objects, emails she swore she never sent, texts that seemed to disappear from her phone, friends growing distant, and money that never seemed to add up. I watched as she paced the kitchen one morning, scrolling through her banking app, her brows furrowed in confusion. "This doesn't make sense," she muttered, rubbing her temple. "I had money in here last week." "I know I did." I took a sip of my coffee, hiding my smirk behind the rim. "Maybe you spent more than you thought?" Her eyes flicked to me, searching, uncertainty clouding her face. "No," she said, shaking her head. "I've been careful." I shrugged, setting my mug down. "Things add up. Gas, groceries, little purchases here and there." She exhaled sharply, chewing on her lip. "I guess, but I just don't understand how I could have lost track." I reached out, squeezing her hand, my touch gentle, reassuring. "You've been stressed. Maybe you just need to take a break, reset." She sighed, leaning into me, and I felt the weight of her fear pressing against my chest. She wanted to believe I was right. She wanted to believe she wasn't losing control, but I knew better. I was the one pulling the strings. The next step was making sure she had nowhere to turn. I had already pushed her friends away, but she still had one lifeline left, her lover. That was about to change. Using the access Liam had given me, I started sending messages from her burner phone. Subtle at first. Confusing. Mixed signals. "I think we should stop," I typed one night. The response was immediate. "What? What's wrong?" I waited an hour, then responded. "I don't know. Something feels off." The next day, I sent another. "I saw Ethan looking at me weird today. I think he knows." That was enough to send the guy into full panic mode. He bombarded her with messages, asking if she was okay, if they needed to talk. She was confused as hell, reading texts she had no memory of sending, staring at her phone like it had betrayed her. "Something's wrong with my phone," she said one night, frowning at the screen. "Messages keep disappearing, and I swear I never sent some of these." I glanced over, keeping my expression neutral. "Weird. Maybe it's a glitch?" "Maybe," she mumbled, but I could see the frustration, the growing unease. The next day, I took it further. I deleted their entire conversation history. Every message, every call log, gone. She sat on the couch that night, staring at her phone, her face pale. "I think my phone's hacked," she whispered. "Everything is missing." I frowned, playing dumb. "That's strange. Maybe you should reset it?" She swallowed, nodding slowly, but I saw it, the fear in her eyes. She didn't trust her own memory anymore. And that was exactly what I wanted. The final touch came when I sent a message to her lover from her number. "I told you I wasn't sure about this. Maybe it's best if we end things." Then I blocked his number. The next morning, Sophia woke up to silence. No morning text. No missed calls. No reassurance from the man she had risked everything for. She tried calling him, but the line went straight to voicemail. She tried texting, but the messages wouldn't go through. No, 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 she whispered, her fingers shaking as she restarted her phone, as she tried again. But he was gone. Just like that, I had erased him from her life. Ethan, she called from the other room, her voice laced with desperation. I took my time walking in, watching as she turned to me, her eyes filled with unshed tears. Something's wrong, she said, her voice cracking. I think I need help. I smiled softly, stepping forward, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I'm here, baby, I murmured. I'll always be here. And she believed me. She barely spoke anymore. I watched as she moved through the house like a ghost, picking up her phone only to put it back down, staring at her laptop like it held some secret she had forgotten. Her fingers twitched when she typed, hesitating, rereading every message before sending it, as if she didn't trust her own words. I had made sure of that. She was unraveling faster than I expected, but I wasn't done yet. Not even close. The next phase was isolation. She was already cut off from her friends and her lover, but now, I needed to make sure she had no safety net left. I used her email to send an abrupt, vaguely aggressive message to her boss, making it sound like she was overworked and fed up. I don't think this job is right for me anymore, I wrote. I need some space. Maybe it's time to move on. Then I deleted it. When her boss responded the next morning, confused and concerned, she stared at the email chain with wide eyes, swearing under her breath. I never sent this, she whispered, reading the message over again. I wouldn't say this. I stood behind her, watching as she started to panic. That's weird, I said, keeping my voice neutral. Maybe you were sleep-deprived and forgot? Her hands clenched into fists. No, I didn't write this. She clicked through her sent messages, scrolling back, eyes darting across the screen. I don't understand, she murmured, pressing her fingers against her forehead. I feel like I'm forgetting things. My hand landed gently on her shoulder. You've been stressed, I murmured, pressing just enough concern into my tone. Maybe you should take a break. She nodded slowly, exhaling shakily. She wanted to believe it. She needed to believe it, because the alternative was too terrifying. I let that thought sit with her. That night, I took it further. While she slept, I changed all her alarms, setting them to random times. Some rang at 3 a.m., others didn't go off at all. The next morning, she woke up hours late for work, shooting out of bed in a panic. No, 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 she muttered, grabbing her phone, shaking it like the screen would suddenly fix itself. I swear I said it. I remember setting it. I sat up groggily, rubbing my eyes. Maybe you forgot, I mumbled, watching her from beneath my lashes. She turned to me, her breath uneven. Ethan, I swear to God, I didn't forget. I reached for her, placing a hand on her back, rubbing slow, soothing circles. Maybe you should see someone, I murmured, my voice laced with sympathy. Like a doctor. You've been really forgetful lately. She flinched. That was the moment. The exact second she started to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was something wrong with her. She swallowed hard, shaking her head, trying to fight against it, but I could see it. The doubt, the creeping panic, the way her mind was turning against itself. Perfect. Later that day, I called her from an unknown number while she was in the kitchen, using a voice distortion app to play static-filled whispers, just loud enough for her to hear. She froze mid-step, her spine straightening, her fingers tightening around the edge of the counter. Hello, she answered hesitantly, pressing the phone to her ear. I stayed silent, breathing shallowly into the mic, letting the static crackle through the line. Who is this? She whispered, glancing around the room as if something was watching her. I ended the call. She stood there for a long moment, unmoving. Her breathing was shallow, her hands trembling. I watched from the doorway as she slowly lowered the phone, her entire body tense, her lips parting like she wanted to say something but didn't know what. That night, she barely slept. I lay beside her, feeling the way she tossed and turned, restless, her breaths coming fast and uneven. When I reached for her, she stiffened. Something that would have hurt me months ago. But now? Now it only fueled me. She was almost there. Almost at the point where she wouldn't trust her own reflection. Almost at the point where she would break completely. And when she did, I would be the only one left to catch her. She was falling apart, and I could see it in everything she did. The way her hands trembled when she picked up her phone. The way she hesitated before speaking, like she was afraid she would say the wrong thing. The way her eyes darted around the room, searching for something she couldn't even name. She wasn't sleeping anymore. Not really. She lay awake at night, her body tense, staring at the ceiling, flinching at every little noise. And when she did sleep, it was restless, plagued by dreams that made her wake up gasping for air, her skin damp with sweat. I had done that to her. I had taken her sense of security and crushed it beneath my heel. And she had no idea it was me. Tonight, I decided to push her further. I waited until she was in the shower, the sound of rushing water filling the apartment, steam rolling out from beneath the bathroom door. I walked into our bedroom, grabbed her phone, and sent a message to her boss. I quit. I typed, then deleted it. Just enough to leave the notification in her recent messages, but not in the thread itself. When she got out, towel wrapped around her, hair dripping down her shoulders, she grabbed her phone and froze. I watched as her fingers hovered over the screen, confusion twisting her features. "Ethan," she said, her voice unsteady. "Did I text my boss?" I glanced up from my laptop, my expression neutral. "What do you mean?" "I have a notification, but there's no message." She swallowed hard, rubbing her temples. "I don't remember texting him." I frowned, tilting my head. "Maybe you were half asleep and didn't realize it?" She exhaled sharply, shaking her head. "No, I would remember that." She stared at her phone like it was betraying her. "Why do things keep disappearing?" I sighed, setting my laptop aside, moving toward her. "Sophia, I think you need to talk to someone," I murmured, brushing a strand of damp hair behind her ear. "You haven't been yourself lately." She flinched slightly at my touch, her eyes darting to mine, full of something I couldn't quite name. "Fear. I don't know what's happening to me," she whispered. I squeezed her shoulders gently, my expression full of concern. "You're just overwhelmed," I assured her. "Maybe a therapist could help." She nodded slowly, her breathing shaky, but I could tell she wasn't fully convinced. "Not yet. That would change soon." The next day, I escalated things. I logged into her work email, drafted a resignation letter, and saved it as a draft. Then I logged out. When she checked her inbox that afternoon, I watched as her entire body tensed, her face draining of color. "No," she breathed, clicking on the draft. "No, I didn't. I wouldn't have." She looked at me, panic flooding her expression. "Ethan, I swear I didn't write this." I kept my face carefully blank. "Then how did it get there?" She pressed a hand to her forehead, shaking her head. "I don't know. I don't fucking know." I sat beside her, placing a hand over hers, my touch warm, steady. "Maybe you should take some time off," I suggested softly. "You've been stressed, and stress does weird things to the mind." She exhaled sharply, nodding, gripping her phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. I knew she would call her boss later, desperately trying to explain, but I had already planned for that. I had sent another email from a fake address, impersonating her, making her sound erratic, confused. Her boss would start to think she was unstable. And that was exactly what I wanted. That night, I went even further. While she was asleep, I set alarms on her phone to go off at random hours. 2:14 a.m., 4:37 a.m., 5:52 a.m. Each time, she jolted awake, groggy, disoriented, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. "Why is this happening?" she whispered, running a hand through her tangled hair. "Why does everything feel wrong?" I reached for her, pulling her close, pressing a kiss to her temple. "I don't know, baby," I murmured, holding her tightly. "But I promise, I'll be here, no matter what." And she melted into me, desperate for stability, desperate for something, anything, to ground her. She didn't realize she was holding on to the very thing that was destroying her. She was barely functioning now. I watched as she moved through the apartment like a shadow of herself, jumping at the sound of her own name, staring at her phone as if it had betrayed her, rubbing her temples like she could massage the confusion away. Her hands shook when she held her coffee cup in the morning, her once perfect posture now slouched, her gaze darting around like she was searching for answers that weren't there. She was trapped in a nightmare, and I was the one writing the script. But she still wasn't broken. Not completely. That's why tonight had to be different. Tonight, I was going to end this. I waited until she had fallen into a restless sleep, her breathing shallow, her body twitching with every small sound in the room. Then I got to work. I took her phone and sent an email from her account to her boss, this time more aggressive. I can't do this anymore. I don't belong here. Everything feels wrong. I need to go before I ruin everything. I hit send, then deleted it from her sent folder. By morning, she wouldn't even know it had been sent, but her boss would. Then I moved to her calendar, adding fake events, reminders that made no sense. Meeting with HR urgent. Call doctor about memory issues. Follow up on mental health concern. I deleted them just as quickly, ensuring only the notifications would remain. The next day, she woke up to chaos. Her phone buzzed with unread messages. Her boss had responded to the email, asking if she was okay, telling her they were concerned. HR had sent a follow-up, requesting a meeting to discuss next steps. She stared at the screen, her hands trembling, whispering, "I didn't send this. I didn't." I watched from across the table, my expression carefully neutral. "What's wrong?" She turned her screen toward me, her eyes wide with fear. "Ethan, I didn't write this. I didn't schedule these meetings. I didn't." She swallowed, her breathing ragged. "I don't know what's happening to me." I frowned, tilting my head slightly. "Babe, you've been really stressed. Maybe you forgot." "I wouldn't forget something like this," she snapped, then immediately winced, pressing her fingers against her forehead. "I'm sorry, I don't know what's wrong with me." That was it. The crack I needed. That night, I set the final stage. While she was in the shower, I took her laptop and deleted entire folders of personal documents, work files, old pictures, memories. When she returned, towel wrapped tightly around her, hair damp against her shoulders, she stopped mid-step, staring at her open laptop. "No, no, no," she whispered, clicking through empty folders. "Where are my files?" I kept my voice calm, almost bored. "What do you mean?" "They're gone," she choked out, her voice breaking. "Ethan, everything is gone. My work, my photos, my emails." She clutched her head, shaking it violently. "I don't understand. Did I delete them?" I walked over, placing a hand on her back, feeling the tremors in her body. "You're exhausted, babe. Maybe you just stop saying that," she snapped, stepping away from me. "I'm not crazy." I let the silence stretch between us, watching as realization started to settle in, as the weight of everything came crashing down on her all at once. Her breath was shallow, her pupils blown wide, her body trembling like she had just seen a ghost. And maybe she had. Maybe, for the first time, she was seeing the ghost of herself, the version of her that had once been confident, stable, in control. But that woman was gone, and she knew it. I stepped closer, voice gentle, soothing. "Sophia, maybe it's time to talk to someone. A professional." Her shoulders stiffened, her lips parting, but she had no argument left. She had nothing left at all. "I think you're right," she whispered, her voice barely audible. And just like that, she was mine. She had given up. That was the moment I had been waiting for, the second her eyes lost their fire, the exact second she truly started believing that something was wrong with her. She barely ate, barely spoke, barely did anything other than sit on the couch with a blank stare, rubbing her temples, breathing unevenly. She would pick up her phone only to put it back down like she was afraid of what she would see next. Like the very device she once used to betray me had now turned into a weapon against her. And she was right, because I was about to deliver the final blow. That night, I told her I was going out for a bit, just to clear my head, to get some air, and she barely reacted, just nodded, arms wrapped around herself as if she was trying to keep herself from falling apart completely. I watched her as I grabbed my keys, saw the way her fingers twitched against her forearm, saw the way her foot bounced anxiously against the floor, and I knew she was already at the edge. I just needed to push her over it. I drove to Ryan's place, knocking on the door, stepping inside when he let me in. "It's almost time," I said, my voice calm, steady, controlled. Ryan smirked, leaning against the counter. "She still doesn't suspect a thing?" "No," I murmured, pulling out my phone, scrolling through the messages I had sent to her contacts earlier. "She thinks she's losing her mind." "Perfect," Ryan said, taking a sip of his drink. "What's next?" I exhaled slowly, my grip tightening around my phone. She needs to experience the breaking point. Something undeniable. Something that will make sure she never recovers. Ryan grinned. "Let's do it." I sent a message from her phone to her boss, more erratic than before. "I can't keep doing this. I don't know what's real anymore. I think I need help." Then I deleted it. I sent a message to her mother. "Mom, I don't feel safe. I don't know what's happening to me." Then I deleted it. I adjusted her alarms again, setting them for odd times, changed her contact names, erased half of her recent calls, then sent myself a message from her phone. "Ethan, please help me. I don't know what's real anymore." Then I deleted that too. When I got home, she was sitting in the dark, staring at the TV, though it wasn't even on. Her arms were wrapped around herself, her breathing uneven, her entire body trembling. "Hey," I said softly, setting my keys down, walking over. She didn't react, didn't even look at me. "What's wrong?" She finally turned, her eyes red, swollen, glossy with unshed tears. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Something is wrong with me." I crouched in front of her, placing a hand on her knee, feeling the way she flinched, the way she looked at me like I was her last connection to reality. "I know, baby," I murmured, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "And we're going to fix it." Her lips trembled, a tear slipping down her cheek. "I don't even know what's real anymore." I sighed, rubbing my thumb against her knee, offering her a small, reassuring smile. "That's why I made an appointment for you." Her brows furrowed slightly, her breath hitching. "An appointment?" I nodded. "With a specialist. Someone who can help you figure this out." She swallowed hard, her fingers curling into fists. "I don't know," she whispered. "What if I'm just Sophia?" I interrupted gently, lifting her chin so her eyes met mine. "You need help. I don't want to lose you." She let out a choked sob, nodding, closing her eyes as another tear fell. "Okay." And just like that, it was over. She had surrendered completely. She sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window, her hands clasped in her lap, her fingers twitching slightly like she was trying to hold herself together. I drove in silence, watching her through the corner of my eye, seeing the way she barely blinked, the way her shoulders curled inward, the way her breath came in short, shallow gasps. She was scared. She had every right to be. Everything she thought she knew about herself was gone, erased, shattered beyond recognition. She thought she was losing her mind, thought reality was slipping away from her, thought I was the only thing keeping her grounded. And that was exactly what I wanted. "We're almost there," I said softly, and she nodded, swallowing hard, her grip tightening on her jeans. She didn't ask where we were going. She didn't question it. That was the most satisfying part. She trusted me completely. I pulled into the parking lot of the psychiatric clinic, watching as her eyes darted to the sign, her entire body going rigid. She turned to me, her lips parting slightly, confusion flickering across her face. "Ethan, why are we here?" I reached over, placing a hand over hers, squeezing gently. "Baby, you need help. You said it yourself. You don't know what's real anymore." Her breath hitched, her chest rising and falling too quickly, her pupils blown wide. "But I don't need Sophia," I interrupted, my voice calm, soothing, gentle. "This is for you. I don't want to lose you. I don't want you to suffer anymore." Her bottom lip trembled, her eyes filling with tears, and she shook her head, her entire body vibrating with panic. "I just need more sleep. I just need—" "You need this," I whispered, reaching up to cup her cheek, brushing my thumb across her skin. Let them help you. A tear slipped down her cheek, and she inhaled sharply, squeezing her eyes shut. I don't know what's happening to me. I know, baby, I murmured, my voice filled with false sympathy. But they'll help you figure it out. She hesitated, staring at the building, at the glass doors that led inside, at the people walking in and out, some looking completely normal, some looking empty, lost, broken. She was picturing herself inside, picturing the doctors, the questions, the medications, the walls closing in on her. She was picturing a life where she couldn't escape the feeling that she was no longer in control of herself. And then she nodded. A slow, broken, defeated nod. I stepped out, walking around to her side, opening the door for her. She climbed out, wrapping her arms around herself, looking at me for reassurance. I gave her a small smile, guiding her forward, walking her through the doors. The receptionist greeted us, and I checked her in. She's been struggling, I said, my voice steady, calm, convincing. She's been having memory issues, confusion, paranoia. She's scared. Sophia stared at the floor, her hands gripping the bottom of her sweater, her body trembling. The woman nodded, typing on her computer. We'll have her speak to a doctor right away. Sophia's breath was shaky as she followed the nurse down the hallway, her steps slow, hesitant, her entire body screaming reluctance. I watched her disappear into the room, watched the door close behind her, and then I turned, walking back to my car. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I pulled it out, glancing at the screen. A message from Ryan. Did she go through with it? I smirked, sliding into the driver's seat, stretching out my legs, rolling my shoulders back. She's inside now. Another message popped up. Damn, you really did it. She actually thinks she's insane? I stared at the clinic, at the building that held the woman who had once promised me forever, the woman who had laughed in my face while she texted another man, the woman who had taken everything I had given her and thrown it away like it meant nothing. She had thought she was untouchable. She had thought I would never find out. She had thought she could walk away from this unscathed. And now, she was sitting inside a psychiatric office, convincing herself that she had lost her own mind. I smiled, my grip tightening around the steering wheel. She doesn't just think she's insane. She knows it.